Thank you all for being here, and thank Sun Commons for hosting this event. And it is with a great deal of pride that we welcome EPA Administrator Michael Regan to the state of Vermont. And Mr. Administrator, as you may know, this state is perhaps the most environmentally conscious state in this country, and we very much appreciate all of the great work that you and the EPA are doing. And obviously, I'm delighted that we're joined by Senator Welch and Congresswoman Balint, both of whom, throughout their entire careers, have been fighting hard to protect our environment and to addressing the crisis of climate change. I also want to thank Ian Shea for being with us today, as well as James Moore and Joanne Swap from Sun Common. It is no secret to the people of the state of Vermont that climate change is an existential threat, not only to our state and country, but to the entire planet. Just within the last few days, everybody knows, we have been breathing the dangerous air coming from the unprecedented forest fires in Quebec. Canada has experienced other forest fires of great magnitude on the West Coast. As we speak, right now, this minute, there is a horrific heat wave in Texas, other states in this country. And clearly, climate change is not just a threat to the United States. The entire world is warming, the ice caps are melting, and oceans are becoming warmer every day. China and other Asian countries are now experiencing enormous problems with record-breaking temperatures, and we have in recent years seen horrific heat waves in India, Europe, and Australia. That is the reality. And whether people want to face it or not, that is what is going on in this planet today. And if we do not get our act together and transform our energy system away from fossil fuels into sustainable energies and energy efficiency, it is really quite questionable the quality of life that our kids and grandchildren will be having, not only in this country, but all over the world. Which brings us to why we are here today. I am very proud to have worked for a number of years on a program which was passed as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, which will provide $7 billion into Vermont and every state in this country to make it much, much easier for working families to be able to install solar panels on their rooftop. Now, to me, what we're talking about here are two basic issues. Number one, as I mentioned, we've got to move away from fossil fuels, and obviously, solar rooftops will help us do that. Our hope is, by the way, that within the next 10 years, as a result of this $7 billion program, we're talking about 10 million rooftops throughout America having solar panels that otherwise might not have. That's issue number one. Issue number two, in Vermont and around the country, we are seeing more and more people install solar panels, and that's a good thing. Problem is, if you're a working person, if you're a lower income person, it is hard to do that. Why is that? Because of the initial cost. So in Vermont right now, if you talk about no rebates at all, no federal help, $18,000 to install solar panels. That's a lot of money. Now, depending on your income and how much you pay in taxes, you can get up to $6,000 in a rebate. That brings the $18,000 down to $12,000. That's good. And there are other programs out there. State and the electric companies in Vermont have additional programs. But we want to do better. So what we are saying today to every working family, middle-income family, lower-income family, what this program is about is helping you with that initial cost, whatever it may be. What does that mean? It means that depending on the state, and what the EPA has to do, they have to work with 50 states in the country. They have to be flexible. Each state will do it a little bit different. But in general, what it means is that there will either be a grant or a loan going to a middle income or working class or lower income family to help you buy the solar panels. And once you have the solar panels, your electric bill will be reduced on average, in Vermont at least, but all over the country, by 80 or 90%. Got that? So we're not just talking about an important environmental issue. We can reduce substantially the electric bill that you are paying by 80 or 90%. And as part of this program, you are not going to pay a nickel more for your electric bill for however long it takes to pay off that loan. So in Vermont, the average electric bill in the course of a year, it's about, what do we pay, $1,300 a month, anyone know? Sound right? About $1,300 a month. Okay. A year, I'm sorry, $1,300 a year. And this will reduce that cost by 80 to 90%, and you're not going to pay one nickel more than you were paying in your electric bill. And then at the end of the 8 or 10 years that it takes to repay that loan, guess what? Your electric bill is reduced by 80 or 90%. You have virtually free electricity for your home. So it's a pretty good deal. So this is an important program from both an environmental perspective. It's an important program from an economic perspective in terms of making sure that working class people in Vermont and around this country can get electricity at an affordable cost. With that, now let me introduce Senator Peter Welch, who has been a leader in so many areas in terms of the environment. Peter?
Thanks, Bernie. A couple of things I wanted to say. First of all, I see Duncan McDougall here. And the reason I'm singling him out is I remember how many years ago it was that you started that fair with others where you started showing people options for saving energy. How long ago was that? 15 years. Yeah, that's astonishing. And it was kids at school talking about energy and how you save and what the consequences were if we were burning fossil fuels. And the reason that's so important is that the leadership that started here in Waterbury and in other communities around the country, where parents with kids started looking for an alternative to the fossil fuel industry, finally penetrated the halls of Washington, and today, with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, for the first time in the history of our country, we have a major public policy commitment to move away from fossil fuels and fully embrace clean energy options. And I got to just remind the folks at Waterbury that those steps you took 15 years ago, that was the ripple that ultimately created this wave and then this tsunami, where with this legislation, over $500 billion, it has also accelerated private investment. SunCommon is an example of that, to start accelerating that transition to clean energy. The second thing is the big battle we had was not so much about whether people did or didn't believe in climate change. That was really kind of a proxy for the apprehension people had about the transition from what we knew, where we got our energy, to clean energy, which was unknown. And the points that Bernie just made, I think, are so essential, because we have to have the opportunity for people to make that choice to go solar or to go to a clean energy option that's affordable. And what we're talking about now is not only making it affordable, we're talking about making it less expensive. And the affordability challenge that folks in Vermont and around the country are facing are enormous. So Bernie gave those statistics about this reduction in an electric bill. That is good news to Vermont families, and it really, really makes a difference. The other thing is that it's jobs. It's jobs, local jobs, good jobs, right here at SunCommon. So an energy policy that's going to make that transition has to be focused on affordability, and it has to be focused on the good jobs that are going to be created. And that overcomes the apprehension people have of making that transition, because most of us, especially in Vermont, we can get something for less money, we're kind of cheap, that's a good deal. But the other issue, and Bernie, you've championed this and did in this bill, it's economic and social justice. The dirty fuel fossil plants, they were usually built in poor neighborhoods. And folks who lived there, low-income folks, were breathing all the toxins that came out of those dirty plants. And think about what's happening now. We're talking about clean energy, like solar on your roof. And then we're talking about making it affordable. And this is what Bernie championed so hard from his position in the Senate, to make that option available to lower income families, so they not only could avoid being the ones that breathed the toxic chemicals, but they were the ones also who could benefit from those lower electric bill rates. Another element of the legislation is the Hope for Homes Act that I worked on and is finally implemented. It's going to give subsidies to Vermont homeowners that want to insulate their homes. The taxpayers got some help that's provided, but the homeowner has to have some skin in the game because they make an investment. Margaret and I did that with our home, and it's kind of tidy, and our bill's down a little bit. It's cozy in the winter. It's a good deal. So I want to thank today, we're talking about solar and Bernie's Solar for All bill. It really is going to make a difference and give an option to everyday people who'd like the benefit of a lower bill and cleaner energy. So Bernie, thank you, and it's wonderful to be here with my colleague Becca Ballant, and with Michael Reagan, the administrator, and Ian, the real world person, who's going to let us know how it happened. Thank you very much.
Without further ado, let me introduce our Congresswoman, Becca Ballant, who has been a champion on environmental issues both in the Vermont legislature and now in the Congress. Becca?
So let me just start by giving credit where credit's due. I get to be here today to champion all of this work because of the incredible work that was done in the 117th Congress from then Congressman Welch, Senator Sanders, and Senator Leahy. The 117th Congress was one of the most productive Congresses that we've seen in this generation. So huge investments that we are now seeing come to fruition. So I get to be here. I wasn't there passing the legislation, but I was running on these issues, both as a state senator and then when I was running for Congress, knowing that what I heard across Vermont, especially from young people, was we need some hope here. We need to understand that it's going to get better. And so this is a statement about what better looks like. And so I am so proud to be able to stand here with Senators Sanders and Welch to champion this Solar for All program, because this is a program for regular people, for rural people, for working class people across the state and the nation that want to be able to contribute to an economy and a way of life that is better for the environment, but perhaps in the past have not had the means to do so. So it is first of all an honor for me to be here, and for me to say this is a statement of hope for the future. The other thing that I want to say is we have to invest in government. We cannot starve agencies. We cannot starve programs if we want them to work for regular people. So this is a way for all three of us to stand here and say, government is absolutely part of the solution to some of our most intractable problems, climate change being one of them. And so it is a big ticket item. It needs to be a big ticket item because we have a lot of change to make. So this is money well spent, not just for us and our communities and our families, but for our kids and our grandkids. So thank you all for being here and for understanding how important this all is. Thank you, Senator Sanders.
Ian Shea is a homeowner here in Waterbury. Ian, please.
Thank you, Senator. I just want to say it is a little intimidating to be speaking with this star-studded cast behind me. but I'll do my best. My name, as mentioned, is Ian Shea. I live here in Waterbury, and I'm also a teacher, a middle school science teacher up in Stowe. And I teach physics, and part of that physics curriculum is teaching about energy and about electricity. So it's no wonder that our conversations in the classroom are revolving around solar. Even before I put solar on my house, I would tell my students, you gotta go solar. It's so simple, it's so easy, everybody should be doing this. And they would ask me, well, Mr. Shea, do you have solar on your house? And the answer at the time was no, but I knew what I needed to do. So I called up my friend here at SunCommon. We got a site visit scheduled, and before I knew it, I was producing my own electricity. From that moment, there were two main realizations that came to me. One, that yes, this was a smart financial decision for me. In essence, the monthly bills I was paying my power company have now been replaced by the monthly bills I pay my loan for that solar. What's better yet is in a couple years, when I finish paying that loan, I will no longer be paying for any energy I'm using in my household. That's huge. The second realization I had was I realized how much more I was studying my energy usage at home. Now, that was easy to do with apps that you can install on your phone through my solar panels, but I also get a monthly statement from my power company that tells me how much energy I've used that month, as well as how much energy I've generated from my array on top of my house. What I can say with confidence is I am generating a lot more energy than I'm actually using, which is, again, awesome. The best part about all this is not only do I own a house here, I own my energy. And that's an amazing idea. So I'd like to thank SunCommon for making this whole process very simple and easy. I'd like to thank the Biden administration and the EPA for making solar available to everyone in this country. The prospects for this program are amazing. I'd lastly like to thank Senator Sanders for all your commitment and hard work on this bill. And it gives me hope that here in Vermont, we will do more and do better to ensure that solar is available to every person in this state.
I wrote that section, and Ian explained it. He explained it a lot better than I did, so there you go. You know, it is not easy, as everybody up here knows, to pass legislation. That's hard. But it is probably harder to implement the complex legislation that is often passed. And I want to thank Administrator Regan and his staff for doing a great job in implementing many difficult pieces of legislation, including this one. The administrator has been going all over the country, talking about the threats of climate change, talking about the need to move to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. I thank him, I thank the President for the work that they are doing. And without further ado, let me introduce Administrator Michael Regan, head of the EPA.
Well, I want to thank Senator Sanders for that introduction. You know, his legacy for his work on climate and equity has not only inspired millions, but substantively it has accelerated our country's collective efforts to drive meaningful and lasting change on these fronts. Thank you, Senator. I want to thank Senator Welch and Representative Balint for being here and for your steadfast leadership and partnership. You know, there's power in numbers, and Vermont's doing pretty good on those numbers. So thank you. It's an honor to be here in the great state of Vermont. There's a reason that we are here today to announce a $7 billion national program. That's because this state has demonstrated exemplary leadership in implementing solar technology. Thank you for showing the country how to effectively move towards a clean energy future. You know, the rooftop solar panels installed by companies like SunCommon not only demonstrate a perfect example of the transformative potential of renewable energy, but it also serves as a model for the community's willingness to move towards and embrace affordable, secure solutions to power your homes and your businesses. And I have to thank President Biden for his vision and his leadership. President Biden's historic investments in America, the Inflation Reduction Act, will provide funding and resources that will enable millions of people nationwide to have an opportunity to deploy and benefit from solar technology. Through the Inflation Reduction Act, EPA received over $41 billion. Billion with a B. Thanks to the leadership of those people that are behind me, to confront the climate crisis, because this is a crisis, and to deliver life-changing investments to every single community across the country. Now, one of the most innovative pieces of the Inflation Reduction Act was the creation of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, a fund that is $27 billion and the first of its kind to mobilize private capital to address the climate crisis, ensure our country's economic competitiveness, and deliver lower energy costs and economic revitalization to communities that have been historically left behind. Through the fund, our agency is creating 3 competitions designed to catalyze billions in private sector investment, scaling the deployment of clean technology nationally, build clean community finance capabilities locally, and spur the adoption of clean technology to lower energy bills, again, for millions of Americans. And today, I'm very proud to announce, as the Senator has already alluded to, that we're opening up the first funding opportunity for our $7 billion Solar for All competition. The Solar for All competition will expand the number of working class, low income, and disadvantaged communities primed for residential solar opportunities, awarding up to 60 grants to states, territories, tribal governments, municipalities, and eligible nonprofits, enabling millions of households to access affordable, resilient, clean solar energy. Folks, this is a big deal, especially for overburdened communities who are on the front lines of the climate crisis and who have been locked out of clean energy investments for far too long. And that's why 100% of this $7 billion, thanks to Senator Sanders' leadership and vision, 100% of these resources will go to enabling communities to deploy and benefit from clean, affordable, residential distributed solar. These historic boosts in solar investments are all thanks to President Biden's leadership, but the partnership, the very strong partnership of Congress in investing in an American agenda that will help every single person in this country. No one will be left behind. When the president took office, he promised that he would create an economy that works for everyone, that works for all Americans, and that's exactly what he is doing and what these folks on the stage are doing. After decades of neglect, we're finally investing in America in a real way, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, sparking a resurgence in American manufacturing, unleashing a clean energy boom, and ensuring that the industries of the future will be grown right here at home in America. This is Biden economics at its best. Folks, all communities deserve to participate in America's growing clean energy economy, and Solar for All is making that possible. It's time to transform our economy, it's time to empower our communities nationwide, and it's time to work together to build a healthier, cleaner future for all, and that's exactly what we're doing. So thank you all for being here.
Great. Thank you very much, Administrator Regan. Are any media questions? Yeah.
I'm wondering from the administrator, you said that you're opening up the first funding opportunity for Solar for All. Do you know when any grants will actually be distributed and when we'll actually begin to see the benefits of this program?
Well, you know, I think we're going to go through a process that 1 year. So we're going to go through a process, and this is, I'm proud, this is not a paternalistic approach. What we've actually done is we've said nonprofits and communities and locally elected officials know their communities better than the federal government ever could. So we're creating a competition, and we're going to have these entities step up and take control of significant resources to be sure that all of these communities are brought in. The senator alluded to this earlier. The 50 states, multiple territories, multiple tribal nations, these programs will be designed and distributed differently, but done in a way that really ensures that we leave absolutely no community behind.
I had a question for the administrator about implementation. Some have said that here in Vermont, regulation and Public Utility Commission sometimes creates barriers or hurdles to installing mostly larger solar projects, but solar writ large. How do you see that going, some of these projects playing out when in a state like Vermont we do have strict regulation?
You know, I think we do see different levels of stringency of regulations all across the country. As part of the Inflation Reduction Act, we set up technical assistance centers all over the country, 13 of them. Each of these centers, we've given them $10 million. And what we're doing is we're trying to bring together academics, the business community, locally elected officials, and community members to think through how we cut through the bureaucratic red tape. That looks different in every state, which is why we set up these regional centers. Listen, I think we're going to be on a very ambitious timeline, but when you have $7 billion of capital beginning to flow through each of these states, matched with private sector dollars that wants to come off the sideline, I believe we can solve this problem in an expeditious fashion.
Okay, any other questions?
Hi, this is a question for Administrator Regan or anyone. So the Supreme Court lately has kind of taken an attacking stance on some of the EPA's policies and, climate policy in general. So how has policy had to adjust for programs like this for longevity? And, is there any risk of a threat from the court?
You know, I would say that when we think about our climate policy, particularly when we think about West Virginia versus EPA, the reality is that the markets have already spoken. The business community has moved forward. Technology has lowered costs. So we're in a position to design regulations that can stay away from some of the threats that we've seen as of late. When you marry our regulatory authority to control these dangerous pollutants from coal plants, and when we think about how we want to control the emissions from methane, we know that we can capture the opportunities through technology, through advanced business models. And so we call these regulations or technology standards the sticks. The carrots are billions of dollars that Congress passed to marry with that. Right now, we have public-private partnerships that want to ensure that this country stays globally competitive while we save our planet. And so I feel really good that we can stay out of the sights of the courts and continue to stay on that trajectory that the president has us on.
I wonder, so many of the lower income do have residents of Vermont rent. Will solar for all incorporate and
That's a very good question, and that's one of the complexities that the EPA is dealing with. The answer is yes, but it's not going to be easy to put together, but they are working on it, and that's a great question. All right. Well, let me just thank all of you for being here. Let me thank the administrator for being here. It is my hope that here in Vermont and around this country, we rise to the occasion of moving dramatically with countries all over the world to save this planet. When we talk about climate being an existential threat, that's not rhetoric, that is reality. And today, I think, is a good day forward for America in transforming our energy system, but it's just the start. Together, we've got to do a lot more. And let me thank Sun Commons and everybody else who is here for the great work that they are doing. Thank you all very much.